We are the Gujarat Technological University. Since its inception over a decade ago, GTU has been empowering young and curating minds to realize their true potential. Over 4 lakh inspired students are enrolled with one of the premier academic universities in India. With more than 450 affiliated colleges in its fold operating across 5 zones of the state, GTU, the International Innovative University, your place to move forward.
Greetings everyone. Today, myself Abhishek Sapre. In this presentation video, I am going to cover the concepts of flow which takes place through pipes. Before we start understanding the concept regarding the flow through pipes, we need to go through 2 objectives which are utmost important to understand a flow which takes through pipes. First of all, we need to calculate the major and minor losses associated with the pipe flow, right? Now, like if you observe any pipe flow, at that time we have many major and minor losses which takes place, which retards the velocity or which retards the discharge of the flow. And for that we have to calculate all the losses. We have to first determine the losses and then we have to calculate the losses, and after that we have to determine the pumping power requirements, because on the basis of the requirement which is needed at the end or at the intermediate all the sections of the pipe, after knowing the losses we will have to compensate those losses for determining the pumping power requirements. Second, to understand the different velocity and flow rate measurement techniques. Why to do this? Because whenever you have to consider, like for example we are considering a piping system of a complete water supply system of a city or of a town, at that time we have to know how we are going to consider various techniques in understanding different velocity and different flow rates which takes place at different pipe sections, or if a pipe is in contraction or if a pipe is in series, it is having some connections, joints. At that time, after knowing the losses, you will have to understand its velocity and its flow rate. And then after analyzing all these things, we will get the advantages and disadvantages of these things, and from those disadvantages we can make out that how we can overcome those disadvantages by applying various other techniques. Moving further, we will start with average velocity in a pipe. Now whenever you have to consider an average velocity in a pipe, you should know or you should understand the material of the pipe. Now for understanding the material of the pipe, you will have to know that the manufactured pipe which is available with you, the inside walls of the pipe, whatever roughness it contains, according to that there will be different conditions which prevail, which can directly or indirectly hamper the velocity of flow inside that pipe. Now generally we say that there is a no slip condition which prevails in a pipe, hence at the walls of the pipe or at the duct flow will be 0. Now how does that take place? If you observe here the velocity diagram which is shown at the left of the screen, in that you will observe that the velocity near the walls is very less. At the wall it's 0. When you go above till the center of the pipe or till the center of the flow through the pipe, you will see that at the center you are getting the maximum velocity, whereas when you go further above near the wall, the velocity keeps on declining. Now the instantation, that is the Vmax you will get at the center and V minimum you will get at the walls. To compensate that, or to actually know the velocity inside a pipe or the velocity of flow inside a pipe, you need to consider average velocity, because in the vertical direction at different places you are getting different amount of velocity. Hence you will have to sum up them and take the average of those velocities so that you can consider a single value of velocity for the flow. And this happens due to the friction of force, the friction force which is created due to the surface roughness of the pipe, which is against the flow of water or flow of fluid which is taking through pipes. Now, one thing we should always keep in mind, that when there is a no slip condition caused, at that time there will be a generation of shear stress and also a friction which takes place along the pipe walls, and which is responsible for such velocity distribution which is shown on the screen. As we see the velocity distribution, now we will consider different types of pipes. Like for example, if we are considering a constant diameter pipe and which is having an incompressible flow, then you will observe that the average velocity remains same down the pipe. Even if the velocity changes, there will be no change in mass. As the fluid is incompressible, as the flow is incompressible, the density, the average velocity and area of pipe, as the diameter is constant, the area of pipe cross section will be constant. Hence there will be conservation of mass taking place. Hence rho, V average and A are same as shown to you in the figure. Now if you observe this figure, you will see that there is a change in diameter. The diameter is decreasing from D1 to D2. Hence there are variable diameters for a given length of pipe. Now at section 1 you are having D1 as the diameter, at section 2 you are having D2 as diameter. But due to law of conservation of mass, though velocity may be v1 and v2, that is different velocities due to the pipe contraction, still the mass is going to be constant through section 1 and through section 2. That is, at the start of section 1 if the mass is m, at the end of the section 2 the mass will remain same. This is conservation of mass through the flow. After knowing or after studying the analytics of different diameters of pipe or having a constant diameter pipe, we will now see the types of flow. Generally we will see basically two major types of flow, that is laminar flow and turbulent flow. We all know that laminar flow or turbulent flow can be distinguished easily with the help of Reynolds number. Like for example, if the Reynolds number for a flow is less than 2000, it will be laminar flow, and if it will be greater than 4000, then it will be turbulent flow. Now we also know that a turbulent flow is always an unsteady flow. However, if you calculate the mean of the flow, that is say at a section in the starting of the pipe and say at various section between in between the pipe length and at the end, if you take the mean of the flow values, then it may occur that you find that the flow was steady, but that kind of flow is actually known as stationary turbulent flow, whereas in laminar flow it can be steady or unsteady, right? If you see the figure which is shown in the difference below, you will see the die trace in laminar flow has a constant flow line, whereas the die trace in case of turbulent flow is very much fluctuating. This is the reason we can say that turbulent flow is an unsteady flow. Generally, the ones which with higher Reynolds number are always turbulent flow, and the ones which lowest Reynolds number are always in terms of laminar flow. As I said earlier, the Reynolds number for a flow whose value is less than 2000, that will be laminar, and greater than 4000, that will be turbulent. Now between 2000 and 4000 there comes a flow which is known as a transitional flow. This is the period, or this is the value between which a flow transits from a condition of laminar to a condition of turbulent. As we all know that if you want to define a Reynolds number, it is nothing but a ratio of inertia force to the viscous force of the fluid. That is, if you see, or if you calculate, or if you represent it in terms of mathematics, it will be R is equal to V average multiplied by the length of the pipe or length of the flow which is considered, divided by its viscosity. Now, further, if you see the factors which affect, or the factors on which the Reynolds number or the critical Reynolds number depends, is the pipe roughness, vibrations, upstream fluctuations, or disturbances. Disturbances are those which are physically done in a piping system. That is, maybe a presence of valve or more, or elbows. At that places, the flow gets critically disturbed and may change from one type of flow to another type of flow. Its behavior will change, its velocity may change, its discharge may change. Why? Because there are physical disturbances in the direction of the flow, or in the path of the flow. Hence, you will have to, or we have to, generally check all these parameters for considering critical Reynolds number. And always these conditions or these factors are not constant throughout the piping system. Hence, we get approximate values of this Reynolds number. It is not a perfect value which you are getting, like if it is 2100, then it will be same throughout. As these physical parameters keep on changing, the Reynolds number may also come, or also give out some approximate value. And on that approximate value, you have to consider which type of flow is prevailing inside the pipe. Now, for a fully developed pipe flow, when we consider a fully developed pipe flow throughout the piping systems, at that time we also need to consider, or we also need to find out that what is the head loss, that is at the end of the system, what kind of head loss you are getting due to the major and minor losses which have taken place. For that, first of all, we will have to learn about wall shear stress. Wall shear stress is nothing but due to the roughness of the walls of the pipe, there will be a development of shear stress at the walls which acts in opposite direction to the fluid. Now remember, this shear stress is also responsible for the surface tension which is being generated at the liquid solid interface. That is, at the walls there will be the surface tension which is created, and the tau w which is shown into the figure to you, in whether it is a laminar flow, whether it is a turbulent flow, they both are different kinds of flow, hence their velocity distribution is different, and the slope of the velocity distribution curve which is shown through that, this shear stress acts through the walls, or due to the walls, on the flow. And we all know that as there is a difference between laminar and turbulent flow, there will be difference between the shear stress acting on the fluid due to the wall. Hence, the shear stress acting in turbulent flow will be greater than the shear stress acting in the laminar flow. We all know that the simple shear flows are having the velocity u is a function of the depth of the flow, that is tau is equal to mu du upon dy, where mu is the viscosity and du by dy is nothing but the change in velocity per change in depth of the flow. After studying the shear stress at wall, now we will have to go through the pressure drop in the fully developed pipe flow. Here we will have to consider the law of conservation of mass, where m1 is mass 1, for example m2 is mass 2, and m is the total mass of the flow. As the flow in the pipe which is developed fully is having or is following the law of conservation of mass, hence m1 will be equal to m2 will be equal to m. We also know that m1 is equal to rho into v, that is density into the velocity. Mass is equal to density into the velocity of the flow, hence rho v1 is equal to rho v2, which tends to be equal to v, which is constant throughout the pipe length which is considered. As the velocities are constant and also the area which is given to you is constant for a given pipe, q1 is equal to q2, which is equal to q. Right, now for q1 we know that the discharge is given by velocity into the flow area. Now flow area is given by pi d square by 4. Hence v1 into pi d square by 4 is equal to v2 into pi d square by 4, which is equal to v, or we can say v1 is equal to v2 is equal to v from the above step. In the next step we are getting v1 is equal to pi d square by 4, which is equal to v square pi d square by 4, hence to v1 is equal to v2. Now further, as the pipe is horizontal, the momentum in the direction of the axe reduces. Hence P1 minus P2 into pi d square by 4 is equal to tau W into pi dl. Or we can also say that P1 minus P2 is equal to 4 tau W into L by D. Now at LHS we will consider pumping systems, and at RHS we will consider the turbine system, right? Where H pump will be the head of the water at when it is being given to the pump, and H at turbine is the head which is responsible for the flow which strikes at the turbine, right? So we can say that P1 by rho g plus alpha 1 into V1 square by 2g plus Z1 plus head at pump will be equal to P2 by rho g plus alpha 2 V2 square by rho g plus Z2 plus head at the turbine plus the head loss which is taking place from the pump till the turbine. Now the velocity terms and the alpha terms will cancel out each other as they are equal. As it follows the law of conservation of mass, we have V1 and V2 which are same at same values and they will cancel out each other. And as the shape factor, we don't have any change in the shape of the pipe, hence alpha 1 and alpha 2 will also cancel out each other. Hence we get P1 minus P2 is equal to rho g HL, where HL is nothing but it is the head loss which is generated due to the pressure drop inside the pipe. As we move further, in the last slide in the second equation you had observed that P1 minus P2 is equal to 4 tau W into L by D. Now substituting the value of P1 minus P2 in that equation, you will get the head loss equation HL is equal to 4 tau W upon rho G into L by D. Now, we will substitute Darcy's friction coefficient factor F in place of tau W. So, the relationship between the friction factor F and tau W is given by F is equal to 8 tau W upon rho V square, which implies that tau W is given by F into rho V square by 8. Hence, the equation of head loss becomes HL is equal to F into L by D into V square by 2G. But we know that for laminar flow, roughness does not affect the flow unless it is huge. Hence, if the pipe is a polished one, there will be less resistance offered due to its surface roughness. Therefore, for laminar flow, F will be equal to 64 by Re, which will be considered as the exact value for the coefficient F. Whereas for turbulent flow, we have to use either charts or either empirical formulas for determining the friction coefficient F. Hence, the equation which we derived in the previous slide regarding the head loss HL is equal to F into L by D into V square by 2G is for major losses like friction. Now, considering minor losses. For minor losses, all the physical constraints of the pipe network are responsible. Hence, piping systems which include fittings, valves, bands, elbows, T's, inlets, exits, enlargements and contractions. All these physical constraints are considered for minor loss of flow through pipes. These components always interrupt in the smooth flow of the fluid and they cause an additional loss because of flow separation or flow mixing or flow retarding. Hence, we have to introduce a relationship for minor loss associated with the above components. Hence, the equation for head loss for minor losses is given by HL is equal to KL into V square by 2G, where KL is the loss coefficient, which is different from each component and is assumed to be independent of the Reynolds number. The total loss of head henceforth will be given by adding both the major loss and the minor loss which we found out. Hence, HL is given by HL major plus HL minus, that is head loss due to major losses and head loss due to minor losses. The head loss due to major losses is given by summation of Fi Li by Di into Vi square by 2G, where I is nothing but it is the component of the vector. Similarly, for minor losses, we are considering J component and is given by summation of KL into J Vj square by 2G. Hence, if the piping system has a constant diameter, the head loss HL will be given by F into L by D plus summation of KL into V square by 2G. The I and J components are nothing but the respective vector components in a pipe systems for a flow. Now heading towards our last topic, that is the piping network. The piping network consists of two general types of networks. One is pipes in series and another is pipes in parallel. You have both the figures on the right hand side of the screen. The first figure is showing the pipes in series where the volume of the flow rate is constant and the head loss is considered by the summation of the sections A and B as shown in the figure. You are having two sections. One is section A, another is section B, or we can say that one is section 1, another is section 2. Now, section 1 has a higher larger diameter than section 2. That is, the flow is facing a contraction situation. The two pipes connected in series is creating a situation of contraction where the velocity at A will be equal to the velocity at B, as it follows the law of conservation of mass. But when we consider head loss, at that time head loss will be equal to head loss at A plus head loss at B. That is, you have to add up both the head loss, that is head loss due to pipe A and head loss due to pipe B. Now coming to the pipes in parallel, volume flow rate is the sum of all the components involved in it, whereas the pressure loss across all branches is the same. Hence, the head loss at section 1 will be equal to head loss at section 2. That is, head loss in pipe 1 will be equal to head loss in pipe 2, because the pressure loss across both the branches is same. Hence, we don't have to add them. It is just getting bifurcated and distributed in both the pipes. Whereas velocity will be different. That is, in pipe 1 and pipe 2, if the velocity is v at point A, when it goes in the respective pipes, it will split around and maybe velocity will be decreasing. And at B, when you find out the velocity, you have to again add both the velocities in both the branch pipes. That is, VA is equal to V1 plus V2 is equal to VB. That is, velocity at A and velocity at B must be equal, but the velocity through pipe 1 and velocity through pipe 2 will be lesser than that of point A and point B. Hence, we can write that velocity at A is equal to velocity in pipe 1 plus velocity in pipe 2. Because as the pipes are in parallel and both the pipes are diverging from each other from a single inlet, hence the velocity will get distributed among two pipes, two ways we can say. And again, those two ways are merging at point B, hence we can add up both of them and get the velocity at point B. Now, for parallel pipes, we have to perform a constant velocity analysis between points A and point B. Hence, we are considering velocity at point A will be equal to velocity at point B, that is, VA is equal to VB. Hence, it is given as PA by rho G plus alpha 1 V square A by 2G plus add A is equal to PB by rho G plus alpha 2 V square P by 2G plus ZB plus the head loss. Now, the head loss is given by delta P by rho G. As the pressure drop at all the branches is same as we studied earlier, that is, delta P is same for all the branches. Hence, head loss in all the branches will be same. That is, head loss at branch 1 will be equal to head loss at branch 2. That is, F1 L1 by D1 into V1 square by 2G is equal to F2 L2 by D2 into V2 square by 2G. As we saw that the head losses are same in both the pipes because there is no pressure drop for the pipes. The pressure drop remains constant, that is, delta P will be the same in all the branches. Hence, we can develop a relationship between velocities in both the pipes as shown here. That is, the ratio of V1 and V2 is equal to the square root of F2 L2 D1 divided by the square root divided by F1 L2 L1 D2. These real pipe systems always results in a system of nonlinear equations, and these equations are very easy to solve if you know some values and you can directly get the unknown variables. Hence, in the concluding remarks for the piping networks, we shall consider or we shall observe that when the piping system involves the presence of pumps or turbines or a combination of pumps and turbine, the head must be included in the energy equation. That is, the head of the pump and the head of the turbine. That is, the equation gives P1 by rho g plus alpha 1 V1 square by 2g plus Z1 plus head due to the pump is equal to P2 by rho g plus alpha 2 V2 square by 2g plus Z2 plus head for the turbine plus the total head loss which occurs due to the pump and the turbine, that is in the pipe 1 and the pipe 2. The useful head of the pump, that is the H pump which is shown in the LHS, or the head extracted by the turbine, that is the head which is responsible for the rotation of the turbine, that is known as the head of the turbine, that is H turbine, are the functions of volume flow rate. That is, they are not constants, they will vary according to the volume flow rate. Hence, operating point of the system is where the system is in balanced condition, that is where pump head is equal to head loss. That will be the balance condition where you get the head of the pump will be equal to the total head loss which occurs. So guys, that's all for the video. I am concluding here with the piping networks. We'll cover some other topics in other videos which will be uploaded soon.